All right, so it's important to keep the temperature in this place equal and stable, as well as the humidity. Well, humidity is kind of hard to do in a building this size. So we have a humidified closet that keeps our guitars at a particular humidity, and the temperature is the same. And we've got them racked in here, and we can get a lot of guitars going at one time. They're in various stages of the build, so you can see here is a wooden neck, that's a flame maple. Here's a body that's been put together ready for end plates. And then this is what it looks like in its wood form when it's straight. Comes off the jigs, and we've got it glued up. And then we go over there and start doing a little bit more work on it. So let's go talk about the wood bodies. So our bodies come in a variety of pieces that we have put together, CAD files, and then we've selected rock maple, which was the standard of the Emmons bodies back in the day. And rock maple is some of the best wood that you can get for steel guitars. It's just really, really durable, and it has a great tone property to it. So we're making sure that when we get our wood, it's less than 12% humidity. Our wood partners are great. They're providing great wood for us, and the consistency of sound and tone we have found has a lot more to do with the wood than a lot of people thought originally. They thought it could be, you know, the parts, and all of it does play into the sound, but sound of the body of the wood is the organic part that you can't mill on a standard. So you'll get a center cut, an outside cut, depending on where it was in the tree when it was harvested, will determine the density of that wood and the grain. So while you're trying to put a guitar together that sounds the same every single time, which is a huge valuable trait, we're looking for a guy to come in and get a guitar, you know, in 2023 or 2024, 25, and then come back 10 years later and get the same type of guitar, put them side by side, and they sound the same. That's really what we're going for. And the only part that we have found that moves, that has the organic element of it, is the wood. So let's walk over and take a look at what the wood is, and we'll come back to some of the jigs. So over here you'll see on this table I've got some wood that has already been assembled. This is for our double neck body. It has not yet been sealed or primed. So we have an apron here, we have an inside brace, then we have the top of the guitar on this one half, and then you have the other half of the guitar, and they're joined in the center. This would be the back apron where the player plays, and you can kind of see how they go together like this. So when you finally get your wood in here and it's to spec, making sure the geometry is right here is the key. So the great advantage of doing it with a CNC machine is that you do create that repeatable exactness and precision on all of the guitars. And when they go together here, great, the rest of the build will go great, because all of these drive your clips, all of your cross shafts, and all that stuff is connected to this, what we call a chassis. So this was a part, that was a piece, this is a piece, this is a piece, and that's a piece. So there's 5 total pieces. We have jigs that we put these in to make sure they're 90 degrees and everything is a perfect angle and it's all nice and smooth. And it gives you that good crisp edge when you go to put your end plates on it. So once that's joined together, we go to another process, but here's one that has been painted, sealed on the underside of it, and it's important to get them into sealer pretty quick, just so that we make sure that it doesn't change shape on us after it's put together. This guitar will get black flocking, so we have done the undercoat and the sealer in a black, and it'll be ready next for the flocking department, which we'll get into and we'll show you guys. So an undercarriage of a guitar can be flocked, and Emmons is about the only company that I'm aware of right now that still is doing flocking. Flocking is kind of a lost art. Most people are familiar with the inside of a jewelry box. It'll be green or it'll be red and it kind of feels like velvet, but it's not a film and it doesn't come on a roll. It's really an interesting process. So let's step over and take a look at what the flocking process is. Here we have a S10 that has been sealed, and this guitar will be what we call a red belly, so it's most likely black underneath here. If I pull this off, you would see a black, and that red is just a really great contrast. Once it's had its sealer put on and it's ready to receive flocking, there is a undercoat adhesive that's made by the same organization called Flock It, and that matches the flocking color, and we apply that by just it's like a paint, but it sets up really, really quick, so when you start putting it on, you've only got a few minutes to get it completely thoroughly coated on the undercarriage of the guitar, and then you've got maybe 10, maybe 6 minutes. And so what happens here is we have a custom color that we have blended, that is our, what we call Emmons Crimson. And flocking is nylon fibers, and they're very, very, very tiny. You have to wear a mask. But essentially what happens is you take this flocking and you run it through a flocking tube, and that flocking applier will force that flocking fiber into the glue. Then that has to set up for about 12 to 14 hours. Once that is set up, we blow all the excess out of it, shake it out, make sure it looks good. We inspect all the corners and all the surfaces to make sure the flocking is even. And if it's not, you have to scrape it down and you have to start all over again. Those flocking colors can be custom. So how we would go about doing that is flocking comes in a variety of block colors. You got brown, you'll have black. So if you mix these and you know what the ratios are, you can come up with custom colors. And it can be quite beautiful. To keep the labor down, we try to stick with our standard blacks, our Emmons Crimson. And if a person does want a brown, we do browns for guitars that have a wood grain finish. Here at Emmons, we sell the ReSound'65 Custom and we sell the ReSound'65. The difference between the two is one is a lacquer body. Lacquer bodies were not part of the original 1965 design. It wasn't by and large what they were producing on mass scale. Blondie, I think, was a lacquer body, but it wasn't really what they were doing in the beginning like you would see with your showbud stuff. It was a lot of it was just black mica. And so when we reissued the 1965, we have some basic colors, but a person could get pretty much any color as long as Formica can be found in that color, if it can be sourced. And so we'll do it and we'll accommodate those. So when we're talking about mica, generally we're talking about a substrate that's produced by a company called Formica, and it comes with a PVC coating on it. And this one particular one is black. As you can see here, when we peel this back, you have that nice gloss texture on it. But essentially, it's like a thin sheet of wood, but it's not really wood, it's kind of a composite, and it's got a polymer over the top of it with color on it. So we take these sheets and we will cut particular shapes out of them that fit on the tops of the guitars, on the back of the guitars, and they're all cut oversized. And then we apply them with an adhesive, a laminate adhesive, and then a router is used to flush route all of those edges to make them nice and clean. Then we'll go through and cut all the glue out of it by hand, and then we will ease those edges over with a really fine file until the edges of them don't cut you, and they're very pleasant and they fit all the corners. So it's kind of challenging to do laminate work on a body that has a 1/4 inch rise and get everything nice and crisp without chipping it throughout the process of the build. Because after it's laminated, this is going to get handled a whole lot. So you run the risk of it being dropped or tools getting dropped on it. And if it does get chipped or scratched, you have to take it off and start all over again. And then our lacquer bodies are quite different. So that kind of runs the gamut between bird's eye maple versus flame, whether they want it solid material or do they want laminate or veneer. So that's where your ReSound'65 Custom comes in. But let's talk for a minute about the Custom, because we have one up here on the table that just came back from our partner who does our bodies up in Nashville. This one here is ready for what we would consider end plate fitment. So the end plates go on the end of them. We've got them taped off. These have been polished. They've been milled. They've come from the foundry. As you can see here, where we tried to leave as much of the textured aluminum on it as we could. And then you can see where the machine has got in to begin making the critical touch-off points to get that fitment just perfect for these guitars. Once we put the plates on there, we try not to take them off and make sure that nothing gets scratched. But you can kind of see here what our lacquer bodies look like. It's the same process. They have joined in the center, kind of how they were back in the day. And then we do have a variety of inlays. This particular inlay here on this guitar you can see is a classic inlay. It's very, very popular. That was a design that was carried through back in the day, and it's still being carried through now. So this is like a 60-year-old design. It's quite impressive. A lot of our stuff can be cut on a CNC machine, but in the event that we have a one-off piece, we have various jigs. This one here would be used to do the face of a guitar. This would be where the Emmons logo would be, and our guitar's ReSound'65, and the end plate would be here and here. So you can see how this represents the center part of your guitar, and then you'd have the polished piece of strip that goes on the top and bottom. That's also applied with adhesive. And you can see here that when they've been polished, to keep them from getting scratched, we just apply tape over them, and then the back gets just cleaned down. This gets an adhesive to the front of the apron, and a lot of people come in that have damaged aluminum strips. These are very, very difficult to locate because of their size. It's not a standard. It's something that you can find off of MasterCar or Granger or off the shelf. It is a unique dimension. So we do have them. We do in our repair work, especially over at the custom shop, Emmons Custom Shop, we'll have use for new strips. They'll often have been worn for 50 or 60 years, or just damaged or bent or dropped. A big part of the guitar, when those are all scuffed and dull, it just really makes the guitar look terrible. But when you get them that's really shiny and they're really polished and everything's clean, it's just amazing how well that guitar looks. It looks like a brand new guitar. Back in the day, they were doing extrusion. extrusion dies would wear out in time and they would become striated if you pushed 10,000 pieces of material through an extrusion die. So we contacted several companies and was considering having a die made. The die costs are very, very expensive, and we felt that there was a better solution. So these are actually strips that are aircraft aluminum, very, very rigid, very tough aluminum. It resists scratches better, in my opinion, than the extrusion stuff, which is a big deal when you're looking for a trim piece to keep something from getting damaged. You want something that can stand up from scratches. Our body braces are made here. We make those and then we texture those black, and that keeps our aprons from spreading out on the body. The guitar has a tendency for those over time. If there's a temperature shift, your aprons can open up and it can cause structural foul-ups inside the guitar, even some of the parts in some of the old stories where the cross shafts are falling out of the guitar. We've got little protective sleeves here. We were discussing how hard it is to polish. So when you finally do get them to where you want them and they're just right, you don't want to mess them up, right? So we have these little sleeves, and we give these to our client kind of as a courtesy, and they go with the guitar for life. And if they will keep those when they fold the guitar up, it keeps them from getting beat and banged up in transit. These fingers come in two parts. Each string has two fingers, and I'll slide that right off the axle. You'll see those literally are less than a thousandths tolerance, so they are really precision fit. And push-pulls have a split finger that is actually two specific parts. They were argued as to what alloy that was, and we discovered that they're actually two different alloys. So both people that were fighting about that on the forum were correct. And so that kind of goes together that way. We put that in the box. These are polished as well. So those are very small, and those will get snatched out of your hand and slung across the room faster than anything. And those will fit right on the guitar. Those get together, go just like that. Well, they just don't take but just a little bit, and they fit just like a glove. So that's kind of what your changer assemblies look like. And as we get done, we just keep adding parts here. When everything is checked off, you've got yourself a guitar that's ready to assemble over at the assembly department. So what we have eventually is a full arc, and then this comes back. When it's done, that work order is turned back in, it ships with the guitar, and you start the whole process over again with new parts for the new guitar. And there's this whole cycle of guitars that are always going on at this facility. So when people call us and say, hey, I don't see movement on the shipping work in progress online portal that we have for all of our clients, there are certain things that are back ordered. For example, right now, this changer is one of the last few that we can actually put together because we're missing our order of raised fingers. So we have all of our lower fingers, but we're short on our raised fingers, and so there was a shortage in the mill. So we're held up by these raised fingers, which drives this subassembly, and you can't put the guitar together until you have the changer in it. So there's guitars that are ready to go except for these missing parts, and that always complicates delivery, and it's just been really, really difficult. We're thankful to have our vertical mill here that we're starting to lean into, to where we're doing our own milling, and we don't have to worry about going outside for so much help with some of these smaller parts.